Cayanan Brown, who in that 1998 special report you saw there, do that report. And Grace, welcome to the show, and thank you so much for joining us. Can you tell us where were you then, and where you're at now, several years later, 25 years later?
Yes, Thomas, thank you so much for having me on the show today. 25 years ago, I was a news reporter for the KUAM news team, and I covered the site or the actual crash that happened 25 years ago. Now I'm in Huntington Beach, California. I have two beautiful kids, and I am now a practicing attorney. Started my own practice 3 years ago and have been practicing law since I left KUAM back in 2001.
And so what was it like covering that tragedy just over the weekend? The memorial was held at the monument site, something that your package in 1998 focused on. Do you remember what it was like covering that tragedy?
I remember it very well. In fact, I had goosebumps when Marie Calvo reached out to me asking me to do this story. Um, that day was really crazy. The morning of the crash, I was actually at the airport that morning picking up my dad, and it was kind of a little weird, really quiet. Got home and my mom called. She was in California at that time, and she's like, "Turn on the news. You guys are on the island. You're on the news. The island. There's a crash." So I picked up my pager and I had over 20 messages like, "Hurry up, get to the station 911." And this was like at 5:45 in the morning. It was a crazy day, very overwhelming. The news team, were all trying to gather as much information to figure out what happened, what caused this plane to go down, and what could have been done to prevent it. We also were trying to figure out who was on that plane, who survived, how many people died. It was a crazy situation because you think about it, we are a small island in the Pacific, 212 square miles, and all of a sudden, our tiny island is the center of the world's attention. Not only were we gathering information to tell our island people about what was happening in Nimitz Hill, we were gathering information from across the globe. I had phone calls from the Middle East, phone calls from Australia. I was meeting news members from London at the airport that morning. So it was definitely a crazy, hectic, and overwhelming day. It was really sad what happened that day and getting the information. It took a lot of legwork to get as much information as we can. And as you know, with big crashes like this, we can't get the answers so quickly. In fact, I believe it took several years for the NTSB to hold their hearing to find out what exactly happened that morning.
And what do you remember from the newsroom? You mentioned you woke up to those 20 messages in the aftermath, and as you said, the years that it took, because this story is still ongoing. We're covering it 25 years later with its anniversary. What was the newsroom like? Do you remember what it was like in the office?
Oh, I do. It was chaotic. It was definitely chaotic because not only were all the news staff on the phone constantly taking phone calls from everybody gathering the information, we had media personnel from across the globe going through our news station. Back then, we were an NBC CBS affiliate, so we had those news team members actually working out of our station in Dededo. It was crazy and hectic in a sense that there were a lot of unanswered questions. There were a lot of emotions involved. I recall like a few days after the crash, there was an actual protest at the airport. We had family members whose family passed away in the crash. They were at the airport and protesting. They're really upset with the airport officials as to what happened. So it was chaotic in a sense that we wanted to provide all the information we were able to get to the public. However, the information was limited in the early days covering the crash.
And Grace, before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask you, reflecting now, you're an attorney now in the States, looking back at this type of reporting and the stories that were told, just the importance of telling these stories. What's your comment on that?
My comment, it's really tragic that we had to experience this happen to our island. But with working with a wonderful team back then, it was great that we came together to do what we needed to do to inform the public of what's going on. It was a learning experience, and hopefully it's something we don't have to, or you don't have to experience ever again.
All right, thank you so much, Grace Brown, for joining us. Wonderful to have you back at KUAM for this brief moment, and we thank you for your work that you did at the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, Tomas, that was one of the people that, I mean, literally you were standing on the shoulders of giants now, because Gracie Cayanan, as she was known at the time, did some fantastic work for us as a news anchor and as a reporter.
Yes, and so that full interview with some older and probably familiar faces as well can be viewed on our latest episode of Pacific Matters, which is up on YouTube, and again, part of the KUAM podcast network from the files. So you can catch it there. We can never watch and learn and relearn that history, Jason. So grateful for Grace and the news team then that gathered it. Really impactful reporting.
Yeah, I don't think any of us that have been here as long as I have ever actually called her Grace. She was always like Gracie.
Gracie, yes, yeah. She was saying her TV name was Gracie. So
yeah,
and she'll be watching this later. I know she's in California, and we thank her for her time.
Yeah, so Gracie, we miss you, and we are very, very proud of you, and not at all surprised that you are a rock star lawyer. But we wish you and your family all the best. So, Tomas, fantastic reporting. Great work as always.
Thanks.
All right, please stay tuned, everybody. Canada Conversations is coming up right after the break.